Customer Success Convos. Join the biggest names in customer success for a video series that brings together leaders within the field to discuss the latest trends, innovative insights, and most effective strategies within customer success right now. Hosted by Vish Walia. Whether you're new to customer success or a seasoned professional, Vish and his guests will leave you with actionable advice, takeaways, and top tips to enhance your customer experiences.
Rav, as a starting point, tell us about yourself, what you do, how you help companies.
Sure. So, Vish, as you mentioned, I'm currently working in the world of venture capital. So I help to sort of find, fund, and support sort of the next generation of sort of European deep tech companies. Prior to that, I guess the best way to describe my career was I'm a recovering software exec. So I spent the last 25 plus years working in various enterprise software companies, some very large ones at the beginning of my career, IBM, Microsoft, Salesforce. And then for the last 12 years, it's all been very, very early at early stage startups. I was a very early employee at a company called Yammer, which was sequentially acquired by Microsoft, as I'm sure you know. And then again, very early at Salesforce. And as you mentioned, my last executive role, I was the first employee in the UK at Slack. So helped get the office up and running, founded the global success team, ran the global success team for a while, found my boss, and then concentrated on building the EMEA arm. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, that's great. Rav, I know you're a big proponent of collaboration of sales and customer success. You know, your body of work focuses on building cohesive and continuous sales motion. I read your recent article that talks about the missing piece of software sales. Can you please tell us about the essence of the article and what do you mean by the missing piece of software sales?
Yeah, great question. So I would say philosophically, what I was trying to drive at is that if you are in a subscription-based business in software, the sale is continuous. There's no post-sales, there's just the first sale. And what the article really, that you mentioned, really covers, Vish, is that the way we think about and structure sales and success, and actually whole software companies today, is very much modeled on the model we built 25, 30 years ago. When we didn't do subscription, we did on-premises software, which was perpetually licensed. So when we sold on-premises software and the customer had a license to use it forever, our job was to optimize for getting the contract signature, because typically they would have a lot of sunk cost in order to use the software. They would have to buy infrastructure and backups and data centers and racks and train admins. So their switching cost was very, very high. Now, we've moved on 25, 30 years. We build software very differently. We distribute it completely differently, and we license it completely differently. But we are really still using the same software company structures, same structure of sales and post-sales, and doesn't quite fit. And the reason it doesn't fit is the on-premises model was designed for two types of sales, inbound and outbound. I'm sure all the listeners are familiar with that. But really what my article was positioning is that there's a missing part. And the missing part is this idea of continuous sales. So I don't want to just sell once. I want to keep on selling. So what organizational structure do I need to put in place, both from in terms of roles and compensation and alignment and incentive, to continually sell to the customer? And at a super high level, I'm sure if people are interested, they can read the article on Medium, is to mirror the skill set that you have that did the initial sales. So generally, initially, you'll have a commercial person and you will have some kind of product-focused person, a solutions engineer. Mirror that with a customer success manager and either the original seller or an account manager. So that's really what we meant by continuous sales.
Oh, that's great. And I fully concur with you on, the continuous cycle of sales process, right? There's no end point. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. But the problem is we structure and pay people as though there is an end point.
We do. Problem.
Yeah.
In light of what you shared about continuous sales, collaborating sales and customer success, what practical advice would you give today's customer success leaders that they can apply in their CS operations?
Yeah, awesome question. I think first and foremost, one bit of practical advice I would give is to make sure that you are owning some materially important metric to the company. Now, ideally that metric would be net revenue retention, that you own the number for how much revenue you're retaining, but also how much you're growing. But I appreciate that depending on the stage you are at a company, if you're very early stage, like where I invest, you may not have a lot of customers, or you're really actually still trying to figure out product market fit. But it may be materially important to the company there to drive fast time to value. I need to get customers up and running really quick. So just make sure, I think, first and foremost, that you have, excuse me, some North Star metric you and the team are aiming for that's materially important to the company. Eventually, that metric should be NRR as you progress and mature as a company. I think the next thing that I would basically also say is to deconstruct your North Star metric into the activities and engagements, both internally and externally, that will help you to drive to that goal, to that number. So externally, that's quite straightforward. We do that all the time. Which engagements that we deliver make sense? Do they move the needle? Which ones don't? And really make sure you are tracking and correlating the effort the team puts in and the outcome we see in terms of things like usage and revenue. But just as important is internally, am I across the pipeline? Am I in the pipeline meetings? Am I attached to key deals? You want to make sure that you're doing that internal management as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sure the viewers of this podcast will try to embrace, the insights that you shared. Now, drilling down.
And what I would say is don't wait to be asked. Just invite yourself to the pipeline meeting and sit at the back. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Drilling down on that vision and strategy, mm-hmm. There's a lot of activities that our CSM practitioners do. In light of what we talked about, what tangible, suggestion I would say you would give to the practitioners that they can apply to provide a more growth-focused customer success experience?
Oh, I think there's a couple of key things that I've seen are very, very useful. I think the first thing is, and this is very hard because when you're in the middle of a very busy role dealing with customers, sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. But I think it's a really good idea for a little while to essentially keep a note of what you are doing and what you are dealing with, and actually write down, put it in a spreadsheet. Is this a proactive thing or is it a reactive thing? And if it's a reactive thing, try to note down where you feel the gap is. Is this a gap in support? Is it a gap in the product? Is it a gap we have in a role? And collate that as a team and then discuss that with your leadership and put in a plan to hopefully start to ameliorate those things. Because if you don't do that, what you'll end up doing accidentally is covering for all sorts of organizational or product gaps that no one is aware of because you're at the other end desperately trying to find ways around those or to help customers overcome them. So just quantify whether or not you are inadvertently covering up marketing, sales positioning, product support, or other gaps, right? The next thing I would say, and it's related, it's in terms of prioritization, is if you have a CS person with assigned accounts, you've got accounts under your name, think about them not like your assigned accounts, but think about them like they're your book of business. And it's your territory. Your book of business is your territory. So do you have a plan for the territory? So if your North Star is NRR, how am I going to manage my territory so I'm inputting and heading towards that NRR goal that the group or the function may have? And that really involves how am I going to segment my customers? How am I going to prioritize them? How am I going to discern what the sales intention is for each of these customers? How do I want to treat things that are potentially at risk versus potentially things that are fine? And so you can actually then start to allocate your resources of your expertise in a much more intentional way, rather than simply getting stuck in a reactive trap. Now, once you've done that kind of territory segmentation and prioritization, then you can drill down and do your version of the sales account plan, which is the success plan. I'm sure many people are familiar with the success plan. But what I would make sure is that that success plan is not written in isolation. Write it with the input of your sales partner, account manager, or account exec, and with the input of the customer. So it's really got the right people's input. That's
amazing. I love, the concept of book of business. Rav, if you can throw some light on how do you envision book of business or territory plan in alignment with sales? Is that something the customer success professionals will do of their own and then collaborate with sales, or can it be done collaboratively?
It would ideally be done collaboratively, but ideally, and I think one of the prerequisites would ideally be that sales and success are organized in the same way. So if sales is organized by industry vertical, you would organize success the same. Or if sales is organized by employee size or geography, success would be the same. If it isn't, then that is one of the things that I would recommend both the CS leader and sales leadership actually come to an accommodation on and organize the same way, because it's highly inefficient use of resources if sales and success are organized differently. You want them to be on a common territory, common vertical or common patch, so that they can jointly collaborate and prioritize on what they want to go after and where the challenges are.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, thank you for, sharing these golden nuggets for our, CS professionals. At the end, Rav, if our viewers want to know more about your work and want to connect with you, how they can contact you?
Oh, I'm really, really easy to find. So I would say LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I'm Rav Dhaliwal at Crane Ventures, as you mentioned. And I've also, you mentioned the article, I've written extensively about these kinds of topics on Medium. So again, Rav Dhaliwal on Medium. And if there's any entrepreneurs out there who are building interesting tech for CS use cases in particular, I'd love to hear from them. I'm quite an active personal investor in CS functions and CS technology. So I'm super easy to get hold of.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Customer Success Convos. That's it for this week's episode. Join us again next time to learn more about customer success tips and takeaways from industry leaders.